This one's very, very sad, as it is with any kind of shutdown slash studio closure. Obviously, we're in a really difficult time for the games business at the moment. It's affecting everyone. And the casualty this week, surprisingly, one might add, is that Meta decided to close down Ready at Dawn. Hugely talented studio, but it was, I think, acquired by Meta in like 2016, 2017. And I'm just looking at their list of games that they did, and it's kind of like the console era and then the VR era. And yeah, maybe it says something about VR or just my interest in VR that I never actually played any of their VR titles. But you look at their console stuff, started on PlayStation Portable with versions of God of War and Daxter. Okami on Wii, I didn't know they did that one. Then another God of War title. Then they ported their God of War titles to PS3. And then, of course, the magnum opus that is the Order 1886, which, what can I say? That was just a fantastic game that really should have received a sequel, but never did. Oliver, what's your thoughts about all of this? It does feel that we've kind of like branched off onto an alternate timeline that wasn't particularly great for Ready at Dawn when they could have been a powerhouse first-party Sony studio.
Yeah, we took a wrong turn in like 2015, 2016, because there was a lot of potential, I think, for them to really excel on PlayStation 4 hardware. Then PlayStation 5 hardware release the Order 1887, as it were, a sequel to the Order 1886, and continue to iterate on that title because, man, that's like one of the absolute best looking titles on last generation consoles. It has probably the best PBR materials in a game up to that point. It just looked incredible. I also think the game itself was judged unfairly, probably because of trends in gaming at that time. People were not interested in seeing a linear cover-based shooter that lasted like 5 or 6 hours. They are not interested in that. I think people might be more interested in that today, even though like the fundamental mechanics of the game were very good and the presentation was just out of this world. It wasn't liked by a lot of people. And it's unfortunate that a sequel didn't get greenlit as well. I know that they had some plans or some pitch or at some stage of development, at least, a sequel. And I know that wasn't greenlit. So that's very unfortunate. I think their earlier efforts are worth remarking on as well. Daxter is a fun and breezy platformer. One of my favorites on PSP. Super fun game also came out and just blew people away, including myself, with its visual presentation. It was very, very impressive. Likewise for God of War. The two God of War titles, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. Both those games are extremely impressive. Both of them very, very impressive visually. And I think the God of War titles from that kind of PS2, PSP era still look fantastic. Still play very, very well, especially in the various ports of the PlayStation 3. And I think they're prime candidates for remaster or remakes of various kinds. I'm sure that would be a really exciting prospect to people at this point. More recently, they've been working on VR titles like the Lone Echo games, which I understand were quite good. I did not play them like you, Rich. I do think in general in the VR space, maybe money is drying up a little bit. It's an unfortunate outcome, but maybe not entirely unexpected one. Like I think they had layoffs last year to the tune of like about a third of the employees at that studio. So not totally an unexpected result. I think a very unfortunate one given their history. And yeah, I'd love to go back like 10 years and just move that timeline a little bit to the right and just see a different outcome there, because the Order 1886 was such a good title. I think they could have been a very good Sony first party developer in a different world, but unfortunately that's not the one that we live in.
Absolutely. Anything to add to that, Alex?
I'm very saddened that we lose another custom tech company in this aspect where their technology, I think all throughout their existence, was very impressive, given the platforms they ran on. And it being kind of locked away in a meta vault somewhere to be forgotten, I think is actually very sad. Because, these companies rarely, if ever, have any good reason to take something that they will never use again and just open source it. I don't think that's Meta Facebook's vibe at all. And I think it's just like gosh, like how much waste there is there. There's really good tech out there somewhere, and it's just never be used again. I do think and hope, though, that every single person affected by the layoffs and the closure finds jobs soon. I saw a lot of posts on Twitter about it, and I think most people will be able to move on quite well, because a lot of companies are actually still looking for people in spite of everything that's going on right now. And this talented people that should be moving on to new jobs. But yeah, I'm saddened by it. I do think there was a extreme missed opportunity after they came out with the Order for the company to take that technology and do something else. Not necessarily even a sequel to the Order, but just like another single player, awesome game that, console or not, could have been anything. But I don't know if VR was the best fit at the end of the day for this. I've never even played Lone Echo because I have a VR. I've got an original consumer version Rift, and the setup for it always annoyed me, that original Rift. So I haven't really played too much on it, and I like VR, but I'm not so interested in playing it all the time. So I'll maybe have to now take a shot at playing Lone Echo 1 and 2 at some point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? The Order 1886, we did a retrospective on it, I think last year. Did extremely well. It also sort of brought about quite a lot of positive sentiment from both consumers and also developers. In fact, people are still talking about the technical accomplishments of the Order 1886. These developers are really held in very high regard. So, I hope they all land in good places going forward.